Hi, I'm Ali and a warm welcome to the Ceramic Repair Studio. So in today's video we're going to do a little bit of sticking, if you like. So we have a couple of pieces here. Well, we've actually got four. We have one teacup, and in the previous video we did actually wash these, so I did show you how to wash carefully, particularly if you have gilding here. And so today we're going to be fixing these back into place with some glue. So I have one cup, and I also have two plates, and these are actually Dresden. If you look underneath, you can just see the mark there. And we also have, if we do have time, it's probably going to be a slightly more longer-winded one today, we have this basket as well. It is missing a couple of pieces, but the pieces we do have, we have two bits, and we're going to be gluing those together as well. So let's get going. Right, so what you'll need for gluing is some sellotape to actually help stick and hold into place. And I like to use actually not so much sellotape but a Scotch tape, because it doesn't leave such a residue when it comes off of glue. And I've also got a cocktail stick, and I always collect bottle tops as well, really handy for mixing glue together, but also as well as glue, if you are doing any painting, they're always useful and handy. Now the glue I'm using is Araldite, and this one is a slow curing glue here. So you've got plenty of time to move things around. I really wouldn't recommend using anything which is a quick fix glue, because particularly if you're have multiple breaks, you haven't got time to glue it all together at the same time, and then you end up with a lockout. So I'm using the Araldite here, and I will leave a link actually in the description box down below. So what we're going to do first is let's take a look at the cup here. Now I'm just going to take out the two pieces. Now, because it has got gilding, it makes it slightly more tricky when it comes to gluing, because you don't want to keep touching the gilding, because it can rub off in your fingers after a while. But also, we don't want to be placing any glue on the gilding, because again, it will rub off. And also, we don't want to put any of the Scotch tape onto the gilding either. So because of that, looking at from the outside, it's got some gilding here, but here it doesn't. So we're going to apply the glue, and then we're going to just put the tape from the outside, so we're not touching any of the inside part. So let's just take the glue now, and I like to use 50% of one and 50% of the other, so literally half quantities of each. So just taking a little bit of the glue, and you don't need too much. And always make sure you place the lid back on very quickly so it doesn't dry. And then let's take the other part here. And then just gently mix it together. Make sure it's half quantity there. Now, when you first get the two glues, as you can see, they're slightly different colours. One's more yellow, one's more white, which is great, because when you mix it, it will end up being a slightly cloudy colour, and that means it's nicely mixed. Now this glue, it's a fairly thickish glue. If you do live in a warm country, or if your house is particularly warm, the glue will be finer. And to be honest, that's even better, because then you get a better fix. Right, so once that's mixed in, at this point to take our little piece here, and we just want to roughly guess where it's actually placed. Right, so once I've done that, when you only glue on one side. So for instance, we're going to glue on this side and place onto our cup. If we glued on both sides, for instance here and here, you will find the glue will want to pull apart. So I always just glue on one side. So just taking the glue with our cocktail stick, and you want to be very fine. You don't want to be too heavy-handed. And because it's porcelain, you don't need too much. Obviously, if you had a piece of, say, a piece of pottery or something which is very porous, you may have to apply a little bit more glue. So once we've done that, we'd come to take our piece here, and I'm going to come from, first of all, I'm going to look from the inside obviously to make sure it's all matched up, and then just gently place and hold. Now you want to press down sort of quite a sort of a medium press to make sure all the glue has come out, and so you've got really tight lock. If it's not tight enough, you will end up with sort of big gaps, so you want it nice and tight. And if you get any surplus glue coming out, you can always take a piece of kitchen roll, this little piece, and a little bit of water, which I've previously placed into a cup here, and you can just very lightly just start to take off any surplus glue here. But obviously once you've done that with some wet cloth, you also want to make sure it's dry, so then we can apply the tape. So then we're going to take our Scotch tape, and you want to take a little bit, and then with the Scotch tape I always like to fold it on one side, so it makes it really easy when it comes to taking off again. If you do have a piece such as this, which is very fine and you don't need such a large amount, you can always cut it in half. So looking at here, it looks fairly good, and again, and then coming from underneath and just applying nice and lightly the tape here. And then we're going to go on to our next piece. So again, looking at this here, again, we want to glue on this part and on this part here. So again, making sure you've got really clean fingers so you're not transferring any glue anywhere else. And then just place a little bit of the glue along. I quite like to, once I've placed some glue, is take the other side and just sweep it across again, just to make sure there's no surplus glue. And you want to make sure it's all completely covered. And then taking the next piece and just come along, if you can sort of see from this angle, and just gently place on. Again, gently press down. If there's any surplus glue, just take another piece of kitchen roll or cloth and just slightly wipe. It's almost a bit like a jigsaw puzzle in a way. And then just taking another piece of Scotch tape, folding it. And I always, particularly if I'm doing lots of items, I have lots of Scotch tape all lined up ready. And then looking under here and just very gently place on. Right, so once we've done that one, let's move on to our next, which is the plates here. Now again, plates can be quite tricky because obviously, unlike the cup, which the gravity, everything's coming down here because it's on the end here, on the ridge, on the rim. Because we have a plate, if you actually put something on, glue on, it's going to want to come down because of gravity. So you always want to have it so it's actually propped up onto something, so then gravity will keep it more in place. Now this one's going to be quite tricky because I don't know if you can see here from my previous video, but it has been glued on before, and it's also got Milliputs put in there, so it's added another element, so we're not going to get a tight fit on this. So just first of all assessing where everything goes. I think I'll start with the larger piece it's got a little blue flower there, so particularly if you have a piece which has any gilding and any painting on it, you can actually follow through on the pattern. So let's just take that part. Again, just making sure it's fully done there. And then obviously we want to do the other side here as well. And again, we only need a little bit of this glue. And a little bit actually does go a long way. Now I do have a website, and also in my description box of the glue I use, the Araldite, if you want to have a look on there. I think it's from Amazon, and also things such as paints and various other products, and Milliputs, which I use. So yeah, it's not going to be a tight fit at all, but we'll do what we can here. So just placing on, holding, just make sure there's any surplus glue. And we want to make this almost at an angle now. It's a bit easier, this one, because it doesn't have any gilding at the back, so you know you've got a bit more space for your tape here, for instance. So just holding that in place, I'm just going to prop it up here slightly. You can use bags of sand, a box full of papers and things. I'm not so keen on sand actually, because if you do drop something with some glue on it, then it's going to be covered in sand and it gets a bit sort of messy. So the next part, let's have a look at the next part, would be just there. So and this is why you have to use slow glue, because obviously you will end up with a lockout. Again, just saying again, because this has actually had damage before and has been glued, it's never going to be a tight fit. And sometimes you get some pieces and they just will not fit at all. I do have one video where that happened on a very large mug, a mug from, I think it was a Jubilee, and it was such a shame. It was a beautiful mug, but because it had been repaired and left, it was just impossible to put back together again. So let's just place here. You may have to move things around. Very tricky, but we're getting there. And then we've just got 2 more pieces to do here, so just placing it down there for a moment. Let's have a look. So we've got a small piece and a larger piece. So let's just get that little small piece in. Again, I don't think it's going to fit perfectly. Placing it in is very tricky. To there, and then let's look at the last little piece there. Again, because this has been fixed before, but also we've been applying glue ourselves, so again you're adding another element in. So just taking the glue here, you'll find, particularly if you start doing things for other people, you get given all sorts, and you tend to find people say, oh, it won't take 5 minutes, it's a really easy job, which is, to be honest, no such thing. If you really look, they're always quite tricky, but it is quite satisfying when you do it and you make a good job of it. It's almost like a big jigsaw puzzle. And that's fitted in quite nicely there, so quickly grab another piece of sellotape. Just gently come. I'm looking from the front so I can make sure that it's as good as it can be. So there we are, so that's all in together there. So I'm just going to leave this propped up on a side so it can just dry, and I will keep coming back to it and just now and again just giving it another little squeeze and making sure it's nicely tight and fitting in quite well. So let's work on the next piece. Hopefully this will be a bit easier. Now this has 4 pieces. I'm not even sure if it's missing a couple of pieces. We will soon find out. So looking at this, this would go, this is going to be quite tricky. So one there, and we've got one little slot in there, I don't know if you can see there. So, which could well be that piece here. Again, it's just like a jigsaw puzzle. Yes, it is. So I'm going to do the small piece first, which is the little one which just fits in here. So again, just doing one side. Very difficult not to get glue on your fingers when the pieces are so small. Now, when you're using glue, if you can be also in an open area, with the window open, it's even better as well, just so you're not breathing any sort of toxins or fumes. Also, I just want to say, by using this glue, I do get asked a lot of the time, is it food safe? Well, I personally wouldn't. I think it's great for doing decorative pieces, but this won't be used again, because of course, if you put it into also if you put it into some warm water, the glue is going to soften and it's going to break apart again. So you don't really want to be using it for food afterwards. So it's more for decorative. So actually that's slotted in quite nicely. So I think I'm just going to hold that there. Again, just go but sort of almost by ear. I'll move that out of the way now. Let's take this piece here. I do find porcelain is definitely tricky to do compared to, say, something such as pottery, which is again is quite porous, but it's just trying to get it really tight. And you always find when it's broken, there will always be a few shards somewhere, so you never get, it was never usually as it was. And that's fitting in quite nicely, so let's quickly grab another piece and just come from the back. I'm looking from the front to make sure it's all nice and sort of in line here. Right, we've got two more pieces. So where do these go? So for that piece, okay, and this piece here. Right, let's go for, I think I'm going to go for the larger piece actually. And then we just have to somehow slot the other piece in afterwards. Sorry, the light keeps, suddenly the sun is coming out, and I always like to do my china restoration and repair by natural light as well, so it's fine if it's quite steady, but if the sun's coming in and out it can be slightly more tricky. And we've got a bit there as well, and just make sure surplus is off, and then just start to come along. Quite good there. Just hold that into place. We can always move things around a bit later. So place at the back. This seems a bit easier than the previous. You never get two plates the same. Now this one's a bit more tricky because I think I'm going to come from the back here, because you can see you've got little bits of extra here which will come from the back of the plate. So again, just placing glue on, tiny bit on the side there, although because we haven't glued that bit again, because you don't want it to pull apart. Right, and then coming from the back of it, so it's hard to show you from here, if I can do it maybe this way. And that's slotted in quite nicely. Again, I'm just going to take another piece of tape here. And where did I? Oh yeah, it's just there. Just gently placing it on. Again, I'll keep coming back with clean fingers and keep adjusting accordingly. And actually, that's holding in quite nicely there, but I'll probably prop it up a little bit, just so, again, with gravity, the same as my other plate. So I'm just going to place that and prop it up. As I say, and I will keep coming back to that one. And then lastly, we do have, if you're still here, this sort of like basket. Now it does have two pieces here, but it's missing some other pieces, and I'm not going to do much on this, just fix what's originally been broken. So again, just assessing where the breaks are first. So that's there, okay, and then we've got a piece, I think that's there, okay, so it's just missing a bit of that. Okay, right, again, so we want to first of all take these pieces and just get our glue wherever I put it. Here we go. Again, it's quite tricky because it's just in points here. So again, placing on just one side. And it takes around, I would say around 48 hours to dry. As I said before, I do keep going back to it and just giving it a little, gentle sort of, make sure it's all together, sort of a gentle sort of squeeze if you like, making sure it's nice tight fit just as it's drying along, and just assessing how it is as well. Just about going to have enough glue. Now I also have a course, if you'd like to join me there, it's on Udemy. I have a link in my description box if you'd like to join, and it's a full course on everything from kintsugi to washing products, and also obviously painting and gluing. So once we've done that, let's just take our piece. I'm going to stand up for this and get it into place. This is quite tricky. It's getting there. That's it. It's holding in place. Take our sellotape and just place and hold, and take some more. We can do it on both sides here. If actually it's still got gilding there, so I'm just going to do it from the inside. And again, just take pieces. I see a bit of surplus glue there, so I'm just going to take my damp cloth. Right, and then we'll move on to the next piece here. So just holding, looking, right, okay, 1, 2, 3. So again, sometimes you need to stand up, sit down to get the angles. And just applying just on here. We're just about to have enough here actually. And just applying on there. And I don't think doesn't have anything on that end. Right, so just wiping off any surplus glue. I might just take a couple of these just ready. And one more. Right, so again, I'm going to stand up just to see properly. Coming from the inside, gently pressing and holding. Again, any surplus glue, you can always use a very damp cloth. And just make sure then it's nice and dry before we apply. That's it, right in there. Before we apply and put on our tape here. So just holding and just very gently squeeze. And I like to place on one part and then just push it slightly to the other part so you get a tighter fit with the tape here. So for instance, holding on one part, and once that's secure, place it and just pull gently onto the other part, and that will really hold it in place really nice and tight. And actually that's going to be, I think it's going to be okay actually. Again, if you wanted to, you could slightly prop it up slightly at an angle, find something to, maybe even something such as this cup. If you could prop it there, then law of gravity is just holding it in place here rather than trying to pull apart. And I'm going to leave these here for around 48 hours. But again, I'm going to keep coming back, keep resetting, not even resetting, just keep giving it a slight push, making sure that it's a nice tight fit. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing, liking and sharing, and please check out my Udemy course, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Okay, bye.